Every week on Talk Easy with Sam Fragoso, I invite an artist, writer, or politician to come to the table and speak from the heart in ways you probably haven't heard from them before. Some of my favorites are with Tom Hanks, Questlove, and Cate Blanchett. In recent weeks, I talked to actor Dan Levy, director Ava DuVernay, and the editor of The New Yorker, David Remnick. You can listen to Talk Easy on the iHeartRadio app, Apple Podcasts, or wherever you get your podcasts.
Meet the real woman behind the tabloid headlines in a personal podcast that delves into the life of the notorious Tori Spelling as she takes us through the ups and downs of her sometimes glamorous, sometimes chaotic life and marriage.
I just filed for divorce. Whoa. I said the words that I've said like in my head for like 16 years. Wild.
Listen to Misspelling on the iHeartRadio app, Apple Podcasts, or wherever you get your podcasts.
I'm Angie Martinez, and on my podcast, I like to talk to everyone from Hall of Fame athletes to iconic musicians about getting real on some of the complications and challenges of real life.
I had the best dad, and I had the best memories and the greatest experience. And that's all I want for my kids, as long as they can have that.
Listen to Angie Martinez IRL on the iHeartRadio app, Apple Podcasts, or wherever you get your podcasts.
It is summer, and on NPR's Planet Money podcast, that means it is time to grab your notebooks and your headphones and tune into the economics crash course for your ears. Planet Money Summer School is covering the economic history of the world, from the birth of money to the Industrial Revolution to modern trade policy. We've got the lessons to keep you sounding smart at the beach, with help from real economic historians. Every Wednesday until Labor Day. Listen to Planet Money from NPR on the iHeartRadio app or wherever you get your podcasts.
For 10 years, I've been obsessed with one of the most bizarre and audacious cons in rock and roll history.
We were all facing 20 years and all that good stuff.
The lead singer tried to pull off an English accent, and they went on the road as the Zombies.
These guys are not going to get away with it. The Zombies are too popular.
Listen to the true story of the fake Zombies on the iHeartRadio app, Apple Podcasts, or wherever you get your podcasts.
Episode 434, Minimalism for Families with Don Madsen.
Welcome to the Frugal Friends podcast, where you'll learn to save money, embrace simplicity, and live a richer life. Here are your hosts, Jen and Jill.
Welcome to the Frugal Friends podcast. My name is Jen.
My name is Jill.
And today we are sharing the conversation we had with Don Madsen, better known as the Minimal Mom. And if you are a YouTube geek like I am and a mom, then you've definitely seen her videos. She talks about minimalism, specifically with not a large family, but like a good sized family. She's got 4 kids. And so she's so relatable. She's like definitely not one of those stoic minimalists that got rid of everything. That's like the YouTube thumbnails where you're seeing the person sitting in an empty room that says, I got rid of all of my things. She's not that. She's just so realistic. Fun, so relatable. Yeah. And this was a great conversation.
Yeah, very down to earth. And I love it when we get to have conversations about minimalism with people who have families, because I think so often when you talk about really anything, finances, minimalism, these kind of decisions that might be a little bit more attainable in your younger years or for people without children, to be able to see another way of life for those who have other ideas, perspectives, opinions, actions within the home, be able to say, and yeah, we're able to still work together towards this
collective aim. Here's how it looks. Here's the ways that you can make it work for you and individualize it. I just love it. It helps it be an option for us versus sequestering ourselves to thinking, well, now that I have children, my life is chaos and that's just how it's going to be. And maybe it will be a bit of chaos, but there being some areas that you can choose differently.
She mentions the social norm of chaos in families, like how she went to the store and found the decor, like the thing that says a happy home has sticky floors and yada yada. And I was like, oh, that's gross. But like that has become the norm, and there's no shame in that. Like the movement is seeking to erase shame and guilt from that. But like there is also another way, and Dawn is a pioneer in sharing that way. But first, before we get to Dawn, this episode is brought to you by listeners like you. I know we've had that sponsor before, but listeners like you, if you're listening to this episode on August 20th, 2024, this episode is for you specifically and brought to you by you. That doesn't really make any sense, but you get it. If you're listening to this episode the day it comes out, you are our BFF, our best frugal friend. And I know we have a lot of besties, but if Tommy Tugboat taught me anything in that children's book, it's that you can have multiple best friends. So we would be remiss if we didn't remind you that tonight is our pre-order launch party. Because you are who we want to celebrate with. So the link to the party is in the Friendletter if you get it. If you don't, then the Zoom link is frugalfriendspodcast.com/party. Takes you right to the Zoom room. And this is the only place you're going to be able to get that link because we're not sending out another Friendletter before the party. So we hope to see you at 7 p.m. Eastern Standard Time tonight for games, giveaways, great times, girls, other words that start with G.
Giveaways? Did you say that already? Gin? Yeah.
Yes. So,
great times. You already said that.
Times,
just show up. Mm-hmm.
Yes.
7 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. We'll be there. I'm
you.
leading the games.
She is. She's already told me about them. I am so excited. I might read an excerpt from a book that's not ours. I thought about that last night. But there's a children's book that I love that really does capture the heart of buy what you love without going broke. And
my affinity for children's books is wearing off on you. Oh, amazing.
I know. Well, I've had this. Oh, there's a story behind this book. I have had this book since before I even met Travis. I bought this book like I was a young woman buying a children's book, and I've held on to it for just like 15 years now. 15 years. Yeah, I've had this book. So yeah, I think I'm going to read a little excerpt to inspire you. But so if you're interested in minimalism, then we have a lot of great episodes for you. Episode 266, we talk about sustainable minimalism with Stephanie Safarian. She is from the Sustainable Minimalist podcast. And we have episode 409, how to simplify your life to save money. And we have an episode coming up with Shannon Abels from the Simply Luxurious Life that you are going to love. So stay on the lookout for that one. But Dawn Madsen, she is known as the Minimal Mom, and her family has lived as minimalist for over 9 years now. And her family, not just her, all the kids, her husband, she is passionate about the message of simple living and reaches over 1 million people each month on YouTube, sharing her practical tips, her ideas. We are speaking with her, well, not with her, but we are both speakers at the Get Organized HQ Summit that's happening the week of September 9th. It is a free summit. So if you are interested in organization, minimalism, organizing your finances, your home, every part of your life, schedule, everything, head to frugalfriendspodcast.com/GOHQ. GOHQ. Get your free ticket to that summit. There are over 100 speakers. Dawn is speaking, we're speaking, and it's just going to be a week to really reset yourself for the fall. So frugalfriendspodcast.com/GOHQ. Get your free ticket and get this little teaser of what Dawn is going to be just wisdom raining on you.
So many things to do. Come to the party, get the free summit ticket, and listen to the rest of this episode.
Dawn, welcome to the Frugal Friends podcast. We are so excited to have you with us.
Thank you. This is super fun to get to talk about. I love talking about frugality, money, getting out of debt. It changes everything. So I love what you guys are doing.
Yay.
Minimalism is one of our favorite topics, and along with our listeners as well. We love it when we get to talk about this, especially when we look at different circumstances of life. I feel as though minimalism as a parent is something on a whole other level. So we're excited to hear what you have to say about that. But to kick it off, can you give us a little bit of background on you, how you chose to pursue minimalism, some of the changes you've seen it make in your family's life? Just start us off there.
Yeah, I mean, if I could take you back in time about 9 years ago, we had 4 kids, ages 4 and under, and I was a stay-at-home mom. And I had everything. I had 4 healthy kids. I got to stay home. That's what I always wanted to do. And I was so unhappy and I couldn't figure out what was going on. It was kind of the same time when at Hobby Lobby, the signs were coming out that said like, good moms have sticky floors and piles of laundry. And my house was a wreck. I just dreaded the days, would watch the clock till my husband would get home. And then one day I was searching on Pinterest for a meal planning solution, and I came across a podcast with Joshua Becker, and he's a pretty well-known minimalist now. And he said, did you know you don't have to have all of this stuff? And that stopped me in my tracks because like the stuff was a big part of the problem. Picking up the toys and the laundry. And I mean, don't even get me started on the dishes. It was just constant. And I remember thinking to myself, I just pick up these same things every day and wash these same clothes. And it was a grind. And I was just, there was no end in sight at that point. And so I started learning more about minimalism. There wasn't a lot out there on it at that time. And I vowed that if I ever got my house simplified and decluttered, that I would start a blog and I would help others know like how many forks and how many bath towels and that kind of thing. So over the course of the next year, I got rid of about 80% of our stuff. My husband had no idea what we were doing, what we quotes were doing. I just focused on all the areas that I had domain over, like the kitchen and the kids stuff and my clothes. And I could not believe how much freedom it brought, how much easier my house was to manage, how much happier the kids were. Turns out kids actually don't need hardly any toys at all. That's just a byproduct of good marketing on the toy manufacturers' parts. And so as we just got rid of more and more, I could not believe the changes in myself, in our household, and the kids. My husband appreciated it more. I now know better the connection between clutter and stress and anxiety. And so everybody was winning and we were just doing so much better with keeping our house up. And so I did start a blog and then I realized I don't actually like writing really at all. And so and then it kind of morphed into a YouTube channel where I can like talk with my hands and show what it was that we were doing and show that a minimalist home, even with 4 kids, is not weird. It doesn't look funny. People don't walk in and think like we got robbed or wonder where is all your stuff. And all the fears I worried about in the beginning, would people think I'm depriving our kids or, you know, all these things, it just really was a non-issue. And now 9 years later, I would never go back. And I try to tell every woman that I encounter, no matter what stage of life they're in, about the benefits of it.
Yeah, that's so good to hear because I'm a mom of only 2 children. And like I was telling you before we started recording, I was like, I'm finally at the place in parenthood where I feel like things are out of my control. Like when like Kai was a baby, I still felt like the stuff was in my control. But yeah, like as we transition into that, like more like the decisions are really made as a family now. Like my 5-year-old actually does get an input to an extent. Mm-hmm. It just like feels more and more overwhelming, like the laundry and the dishes. And those are just like minimal things that, you know, compared to like the toys and the school paper and artwork and all of that.
Yeah.
So I have loved like watching your YouTube videos for a while, and your most popular video is the radical mindset shifts to declutter your whole house. And it's a long one. And I think everyone should listen to it. It's like the length of a podcast. So it's not like a movie, but it's a podcast. And so you're very clear. Like, I love how you break down kind of each room, like by importance. And it makes it kind of more like easier to grasp for a mom that has like everything. And even if you're not a mom, but you're very clear that the kitchen is the most important place to start. So can you share why that is? I know you like maybe touched on it a little bit, but like, can you share why that is and how we can like loosen our grip a little bit on everything we're trying to keep in there?
Yeah. I think it's for multiple reasons. One, when we say the kitchen is the heart of the home, I really think it is. My husband once said, when the kitchen is clean, I feel like life is under control. And so it's a room we spend a lot of time in. And when it is cluttered and messy, we don't want to be in it. And we don't want to cook and we don't want to clean. And when it's cluttered, it's harder to cook and it's harder to clean. It's harder to put stuff away. And as our kids get older, it's harder to involve them. And so it was important to me from a young age that I wanted our kids to know how to cook. And I had learned that kids take more interest in fruits and vegetables if they help to prepare them, right? And so I want to create these kids with this diverse taste palette and that know how to prepare foods, but it's very hard in a messy kitchen because they make it messier. And then I realized all of the guilt over all the food that gets wasted and how I was just continually losing track of inventory. And there would be things expiring in the fridge and in the pantry. And I would be like, I totally forgot we had it. And why didn't I use it? And what's wrong with me? And so I realized that as we cut back the food inventory and the dishes inventory and pots and pans, that not only was my kitchen easier to keep clean, I enjoyed cooking more and I wasn't wasting food. So it's very multifaceted. And most of us don't put a lot of intentionality into it. It just becomes like a time capsule of wedding gifts and things our mom had that we thought we should have and things we got at garage sales or a pampered chef party. And most of us have not put a lot of intentionality into the design of our kitchen.
I can commiserate with that. We just renovated our kitchen and I was so excited. I had my things packed away for so long. We were living out of a makeshift kitchen for 3 years practically. And finally I was able to open these boxes, and my mom had downsized in the span of those 3 years. And so she was giving me family heirlooms and I couldn't wait to unpack them in my new kitchen. And as large as this new kitchen is, it got filled up really fast. And even myself, I would consider myself a minimalist, but the heirlooms can be particularly difficult to sort through. But you have a really great strategy for using specifically a messy kitchen to declutter. Can you explain that? How would we approach our kitchen first?
Right. So often we think like, okay, well, if I'm going to declutter my kitchen, I need to do the dishes and I need to get the counters cleared off. But rather, just stop where you're at with a messy kitchen and look at the data. Like, what is your kitchen telling you? What things are continually sitting out? What things don't have a home? What things, when you moved in, you put the coffee pot over here, but then the coffee over there, or, the spatulas aren't actually close to where you use them. And so just look at it with fresh eyes and say, what is working in our kitchen and what clearly is not working? And then once we start to we want to be more practical with our strategy with it. Then when I go to declutter what's in the cabinet under the coffee maker, so I can put the coffee next to the coffee maker, now it's a little bit easier to get rid of the random bread maker that I got during COVID because I thought I was going to make bread and haven't. And I can say, you know what? Like, I bought this. That sucks. I spent money on it, but this is making my kitchen not function well. And so my priority is to make my kitchen fit my current season of life. Whatever the type of cooking we're doing right now, that's what I want to prioritize in my kitchen. So I'm looking at the data. We're not making bread. Stinks. But how about I get rid of it, or at a minimum, move it out of the kitchen for now till I decide to take that up again. And so by looking at the information that our messy kitchen is giving us, then we can start to say, what needs to get out of here so I can make room for the things that we're actually using. And usually those are the things sitting out on the counter.
Yeah, that was a quote actually in your video that I loved, because we talk about so much about prioritizing your current season, not the season you wish you were in, not the season you thought you would be in, or, or past season, but what is your current season, and not feeling guilty because you're not where you were, or where you're not where you thought you should be, but looking at where you are and using that to determine the things that you own. I love that.
It also gives such a nice permission to not be so aspirational with what we have in our kitchen. I can see that. I'm eventually going to use this one day. We do this in all other areas, but I'm hearing you describe that if we're able to do this in our kitchens, then how much easier will it come to us in all other parts of our home?
Yeah. And we have a lot of fantasy self-clutter and guilty clutter in the kitchen. So we have the fantasy self. I'm going to make bread. I'm going to make smoothies. I'm going to make homemade donuts. I don't know. All these things we acquire, right? I mean, go to a pampered chef party and they just feed into your fantasy self, right? Of like all the fancy cooking that you're going to do. And so there's a lot of that we have to reconcile and say, it is okay if I am not doing that in this season of life. And then there's also the guilty clutter of I spent money on it. And again, we go to a pampered chef party, the demonstrator makes everything look so easy and great. And like, this is going to make your life, you can cook dinner so much faster now if you buy this thing, right? And then we get home and it sits in the box because we realize it's more work to clean it than it is just to use it, or to use a knife instead. And so we have these things that a lot of things in our kitchen we have spent good money on, right? And so it can be very hard to let those things go. But again, think about the money you're going to be putting back in your pocket when you are cooking at home. My goodness, none of us can afford to eat out anymore, right? When you're cooking at home, you're not wasting food. In the kitchen especially, you can recoup money so quickly.
AI might be the most important new computer technology ever. It's storming every industry, and literally billions of dollars are being invested. So, buckle up. The problem is that AI needs a lot of speed and processing power. So how do you compete without costs spiraling out of control? It's time to upgrade to the next generation of the cloud, Oracle Cloud Infrastructure, or OCI. OCI is a single platform for your infrastructure, database, application development, and AI needs. OCI has 4 to 8 times the bandwidth of other clouds, offers one consistent price instead of variable regional pricing, and of course, nobody does data better than Oracle. So now you can train your AI models at twice the speed and less than half the cost of other clouds. If you want to do more and spend less like Uber, 8x8, and Databricks Mosaic, take a free test drive of OCI at oracle.com/strategic. That's oracle.com/strategic. oracle.com/strategic.
Every week on Talk Easy with Sam Fragoso, I invite an artist, writer, or politician to come to the table and speak from the heart in ways I imagine you haven't heard from them before. Some of my favorites are with Tom Hanks, Margaret Atwood, Questlove, Cate Blanchett, and Oscar Isaac. If that sounds like a varied group of people, it's because it is. I always wanted to make a show where one week we could sit with a politician like Beto O'Rourke, the next an author like Min Jin Lee, or TV titans like Bill Hader and Quinta Brunson. Basically, this is a podcast driven by curiosity and an abundance of research. Conversations where people actually start to sound like people. In recent weeks, I sat with Dan Levy, Ava DuVernay, Benny Safdie, and the editor of The New Yorker, David Remnick. You can listen to Talk Easy with Sam Fragoso on the iHeartRadio app, Apple Podcasts, or wherever you get your podcasts. I hope to see you there.
I'm Angie Martinez. Check out my podcast where I talk to some of the biggest athletes, musicians, actors in the world. We go beyond the headlines and the sound bites to have real conversations about real life, death, love, and everything in between.
This life right here, just finding myself, just relaxation, just not feeling stressed, just not feeling pressed. This is what I'm most proud of. I'm proud of Mary because I've been through hell and some horrible things. That feeling that I had of inadequacy is gone.
You're gonna die being you. So you got to constantly work on who you are to make sure that the stars align correctly.
Life ain't easy and it's getting harder and harder. So if you have a story to tell, if you've come through some trials, you need to share it because you're going to inspire someone. You're going to give somebody the motivation to not give up, to not quit.
Listen to Angie Martinez IRL on the iHeartRadio app, Apple Podcasts, or wherever you get your podcasts.
It is summer. And on NPR's Planet Money podcast, that means it is time to grab your notebooks and your headphones and tune into the economics crash course for your ears. Planet Money Summer School is covering the economic history of the world, from the birth of money to the Industrial Revolution to modern trade policy. We've got the lessons to keep you sounding smart at the beach, with help from real economic historians. Every Wednesday until Labor Day. Listen to Planet Money from NPR on the iHeartRadio app or wherever you get your podcasts.
Hello, everyone. I am Lacey Lamar.
And I'm Amber Ruffin, a better Lacey Lamar.
Boo.
Okay, everybody, we have exciting news to share. We're back with season 2 of the Amber and Lacey and Amber show on Will Ferrell's Big Money Players Network. You thought you had fun last season? Well, you were right. And you should tune in today for new fun segments like Sister Court and listening to Lacey's steamy DMs.
We've got new and exciting guests like Michael Beach, that's my husband, Daphne Springs, Daniel Thrasher, Peppermint, Morgan J, and more. You gotta watch us.
No, you mean you have to listen to us. I mean, you can still watch us, but you gotta listen. Like, if you're watching us, you have to tell us. Like, if you're out the window, you have to say, hey, I'm watching you outside of the window. Just you know what? Listen to the Amber and Lacey and Amber show on Will Ferrell's Big Money Players Network, on the iHeartRadio app, Apple Podcasts, or wherever you get your podcasts.
Okay, so tell me, what are some of the things like in your kitchen like that you found that you recouped like immediately?
Yeah. So, I mean, I've had, we had like the rice maker and the quesadilla maker and the panini maker and all that, right? And so it was probably about 2 years ago now, our kids were getting a little bit older. So we have 4 kids, ages 9 through 14. And I decided that they could cook breakfast and lunch on their own. Like they were going to be in charge of that now. But what was happening was that they weren't finding foods. And then we were buying like a lot of convenience foods and prepackaged stuff. And I was like, this wasn't exactly how I imagined this was going. So 2 years ago, we already had a simplified kitchen, but I went all in saying, if this is not serving us in this season of life, and no one was using all these makers, right? Rice maker, waffle maker. And so I was like, out. And so I just donated them. Some people sell them. And then it felt like it freed up the mental space and physical space where now they could learn recipes. They could cook actual foods with real ingredients. And so very quickly, it was helping our grocery budget because we weren't buying all the prepackaged stuff, or we weren't doing the thing where it's like we're out and about, like, well, let's just swing through McDonald's because that's easier than trying to go home and make something now.
Yeah. I have found that in a similar, because we also just got out of a renovation. And so now I have this kitchen where I'm trying to like decide what are the things just the things that I want in it. Mm-hmm. And I really wanted like to keep I really wanted to like keep my Ninja Foodie because it's like this, it's the air fryer and the Instant Pot and, all these things all in one. But I found that I don't use the air fryer because so I'm using the Instant Pot, but like I'm not really using the air fryer. So like I was like, should I get an air fryer? Like that was the first thing that popped up in my head. And it was like for 20 seconds. But still, it was like even after all of this, these like things still pop up in your head. And like now I'm seeing the Ninja Creamy everywhere. And when you're saying like, you're like quesadilla maker and all these makers. I was like, in 2 years, everybody's gonna get rid of their Ninja Creamy. It's just another one of those makers that like I have my one thing is like my pressure cooker, and that's like, even though it has 10 functions, it's still the only function I use. Right. Like I didn't need all the functions. So that's just like, yeah, I've experienced that as well. So we're already talking about like kids and like getting them involved. How have you kind of like included your kids and encouraged them in this lifestyle to be active participants in this lifestyle and embrace it?
Mm-hmm. I think kids are minimalists at heart. I think we are drowning kids in clutter and toys and craft supplies and all of these things. And they don't want it. Now, it's confusing because they don't know how to tell us that when they're being kind of crabby or aren't playing well with their siblings or don't know how to occupy their own time. They don't come up to us and say, you know what, Mom, I think if you simplified my toys and my clothes in my bedroom, I think I would play better, right? We just think they need a different toy. They need, maybe they're at a different stage now. They need Montessori toys. They need educational toys. I don't know. They need something different, right? Kind of like you just said with air fryer,
They need
right?
3 identical toys. So
Yes, right.
They have the same toy.
Right. And so, I went all in on toys. Our kids were pretty young, and it kind of happened by accident. We were staging our house to move. And so I looked at our family room and I was like, well, we can't have all these toys in here. It was a pretty small townhouse. I'm like, I need it to feel open and spacious. And so I boxed up almost all of their toys. And Tom had taken the kids out and I was prepared when they got home. Now, again, they were young. They were infant through 5. But I was prepared. I was like, I'm just going to tell them, don't worry, they're boxed up. As soon as we get to our next house, we'll unbox them, whatever. And they came into our family room and they loved it. Maggie, our second oldest, she was like, I can do gymnastics in here. And I know every parent has had that experience, whether it's cleaning their bedroom or a different room. Kids walk in and it's like they're free and they love the open space. And at Christmas, we all joke like, oh, kids would rather play with the cardboard boxes than the toys, right? But it's true. And so I firmly believe now, I experienced it first, but now I see all the research to back it. Kids are minimalists at heart. And so all we have to do is model it to them. It is not a fight at our house. Our kids still get gifts. They still get birthday gifts and Christmas gifts. But a couple weeks after Christmas, they just know we do a whole house declutter and we just let stuff go because if inventory comes in, then stuff has to go back out. And it's normal. Sometimes they put brand new toys into the donation box, like things they just got for Christmas. And I'm like, oh no, what are you doing? But then I'm like, no, I want them to be open-handed with things. And they've gotten really good. Like they bring me donations now and they've gotten really good at knowing what they like, what they enjoy. And I've gotten good too at looking at the data. Like if it's on the floor, like a phrase in our house is, you pick it up, you keep it, I pick it up, I keep it. And if I pick it up because they don't want it anymore, that means they have lost value for it. I'm not going to try and put it back in their room or beg them to pick them up. I'm just like, okay, they don't want it anymore. And I have to be okay with that. If it's something really expensive or a favorite and they're just in a grumpy mood, like I might let them earn it back. But mostly then I'm like, okay, I'm either tossing it or it's going in the donation box. I can't have more value for this stuff than they do.
Whoa,
so
what
true.
a wild rule. You pick it up, you keep it. I pick it up, I keep it. My mom actually did that with laundry. I'm remembering now, hearing you say that. She did do our laundry as kids, but if we left any money in it, she kept it. She said it was like her payment for doing our laundry. That's so great. I'm curious with this process because I imagine this didn't entirely happen overnight. And so for families wanting to get started, what would you say are some helpful tips in identifying what season we're currently in? What are the essentials for right now? Determining like the necessity of each item, what should be kept or donated? How do we measure emotional attachment? Kind of moving through all those different things that surface in those beginning stages.
Yeah, especially with kid stuff, a great tactic is just to try and decrease it by 50%. So no matter how many toys you have right now, as a mom, you know your kids well enough that you could go in right now and declutter their toys by 50%. You know the ones they've outgrown, they've lost interest in, that they never really had interest in, that they begged and pleaded for and they finally got it and then it kind of didn't live up to the hype. And so that can be a great place to start. And so this comes from Kim John Payne from the book Simplicity Parenting. He actually worked with kids. So he has a fascinating story because he worked with kids in Cambodia, I believe, in a refugee camp. So kids literally that were refugees had lost everything. And that was when he first recognized the signs of PTSD in kids and different symptoms of stress and anxiety. Rightfully so, based on the circumstances they were living through. And then from there, he went to Europe and was working with families there. Now, he was in suburbia, working with suburban families and working with parents who were having difficulties with their kids. And he said all of a sudden, he realized that he was seeing the same signs of PTSD in these suburban kids. They were stressed, they were anxious, they weren't cooperative, and he attributed much of it to their schedules being overfilled and too much stuff in their homes. And so this is one of his tactics. He tells parents that you can absolutely simplify your kids' stuff without them. That's a very common question that comes up. Do I need to involve my kids? And so you can absolutely do it without them. What we do is, again, the goal is to cut it in half. We box it up and we set it aside. So you put it in a storage space, garage, attic, basement, and let them experience it. So you're not donating it all right away or renting a dumpster, but you're helping your kids to be able to experience this, and you can do that without them. Then the next question from moms is usually like, but I want them to learn these life skills. Don't worry. There are going to be plenty of opportunities for them to declutter with you in the future. But often to get back to that baseline where kids even have a grid for what it feels like to live with less, we have to make some drastic cuts at the beginning. But honestly, from every mom that I've heard do this, there are never regrets. It's always like, oh, my kids love it. Oh, they're playing better. Because that's what you'll experience in your kids. They're more peaceful. They're more calm. They're less grouchy. They play better with their siblings. They can play better longer. They get engrossed in imaginative play. They're not always asking to go on devices. They'll actually go outside and play. That's what we want for our kids. And it's very counterintuitive that getting rid of all their toys is how we're going to get there.
Yes. Yeah. We've talked about like your prefrontal cortex isn't fully developed till you're 25. So it's much harder to make good spending decisions and good decluttering decisions before 25. So like helping your young people with these decisions, it doesn't rob them of anything. It is like, it's just modeling for them.
Yeah. And I do want to make one caveat for families with neurodiverse kids. So if you have ADD, ADHD, autism, ODD, kids, they can sometimes have different attachments to their things. And often parents then are very fearful to get rid of things. Obviously, the word we worry about is trauma, right? And I did hear from a child psychologist. She's like, unless you are ripping their favorite stuffed animal out of their hand and burning it in the front yard as they're like crying next to you, she's like, we're not traumatizing our kids. But it can be a little more complicated with autistic children or some of these other neurodiversities. And so what's fascinating, what Kim John Payne recommends is he says then, if you are in this situation, as the parent, what you do is you highly simplify and declutter your bedroom first. So you take the lead and you do it in your bedroom. And he said, what is going to happen is they are going to walk into your room and they're going to say, I want that for my room. And often, again, our kids, they don't know. If you just say, hey, we're going to declutter your toys, they have no idea what you mean, why we're doing this. But if they can experience it, if they can walk into a room that is fully decluttered and simplified and peaceful, then they can put the language around it to say, I would like that for my room too.
That's really helpful.
Yes.
Yeah, I appreciate the acknowledgement that every kid, their age, their different abilities, their ways of moving through the world will make a difference. And as the parent, you can know what's going to be best for them, but also recognize that in most cases, simplification is what's going to be best for them, and kind of the methods of going about that could look different. You've described really well so far, Dawn, kind of what maintenance looks like within the home and the ways that you all are doing regular inventories. I'm curious what maintenance looks like for a kind of external, when other people want to be giving gifts or you're walking away with party favors. And so many times people just want to give families, especially children, things. What does that look like then for you all?
Yeah, I will never forget the first Easter. It was Easter of all things. It was not even Christmas. After we got our house like so simplified, and it was like every family member decided they wanted to bring like Easter baskets and all the things for our kids. And we got back home and the back of our van was like literally full with all this stuff that I knew would not stand the test of time, right? I'm like, it's just going to be everywhere in the house. And I was so frustrated. And so two things. One, I had to recognize like, oh my goodness, Dawn, take a chill pill. Your kids are so well loved. Now, would I prefer that not everybody did it through physical gifts? Like, yes, but oh my goodness, like how great do we have it? The second thing I realized is that there are two types of people that give gifts to our kids, those who want input and those who don't. And so my mom, my sister, one of my aunts, they are super great about asking, especially when the kids were little, what would they like for Christmas and birthday gifts? And then I would just be proactive. And when one of those occasions was coming up, I would just send them ideas, and they were appreciative of it. They were really respectful of what I was doing. And then there are others who they're well-intentioned, but they just love giving gifts, especially gifts of big toys to kids, because it's so fun to see the reactions, right, when they get it. And I just remember one time a certain relative, and I'm like, is it like a competition to see who can give the biggest, loudest, dumbest like toy to my kids, right? And again, it's confusing for the gift giver because the kids gave them the reaction they were looking for. Oh my goodness, this is the coolest ever, right? And I'm like, yes, but you're not going to be here 2 days later and see that they have lost all interest in it. We've had toys like this before, right? Like, my mom brain, I'm like, been there, tried that, and if it actually occupied their time, bring all of the big crap in, like, I don't care. But I know it doesn't. They lose interest in it very quickly. But I just had to realize, like, you know what? I get to control the inventory in my home. So if the kids actually aren't playing with it, then I can invite it to leave again. And so we donated it. And that relative came over a few months later, and I could just tell they were like looking around, kind of like, where is the big dollhouse, And so finally I left the room, and they asked one of the girls, they were like, hey, where'd the dollhouse go? And I just hear, like, clear as day from the other room, Mom donated it, And I was horrified because as much as I want to protect the peace in my house, I'm like not trying to offend people, right? But at the end of the day, it's too important. Like, having our house peaceful and easy to maintain. Again, if the kids loved it and played with it every day, I don't get rid of it then, but they weren't, right? And so I do get to make those decisions. That was seriously one of the only times that has happened over the 9 years that we've been living this way now. And so we survived it. It was fine. Our relationship survived it. And actually, we didn't get as many big things like that in the future from that person. So
there you go. Short-term discomfort for long-term benefit. Yes. But speaking of gifts that we are requesting and we like to receive on every single episode,
stands the test of time every week, twice a week.
The Bill of the Week.
Right. It's time for the best minute of your entire week. Maybe a baby was born and his name is William. Maybe you paid off your mortgage. Maybe your car died and you're happy to not have to pay that bill anymore. Duck bills, Buffalo Bills, Bill Clinton. This is the Bill of the Week.
Dawn, every week we ask our listeners and our guests to share with us their Bill of the Week. We leave it ambiguous for a reason because it's very open to interpretation. And we would love to hear yours.
Yeah, so you guys probably go back to school a little earlier than us up in here in the Midwest, but our kids don't actually go back till after Labor Day. And so we have been back to school shopping now. And I decided, we've done this for a few years, but I give each of the kids $80 and I say, you can spend it however you want. And so that, like, it has to like cover some of their basics like clothes, but we go to thrift stores. So like they can cover clothes pretty inexpensively, but it's been fascinating to see how they spend it. And I have one who will try to get the most out of it. And then this year, our 11-year-old, who he normally does not care about brands or fashion, he's like, I want to get Nike shoes. And I was like, okay. And so they were $60. And I loved seeing him hand the cash over to the cashier. And we do cash. I don't get into like the debit cards and stuff for kids because I think they need to feel the pain of the cash leaving their hands. And so it's been a few days now. And I'm like, do you still like that? Are you glad that he did it? He's like, yeah. And he loves wearing them to youth group. And, and we've had other experiences where he's bought things, remote control cars and stuff. And it did not go so well. He felt bad afterwards. And so we just have lots of like good conversations and open dialogue about it because I never want my kids to think stuff is bad or name brands. I know some minimalists kind of get down on even like name brands. And I'm like, you know what? We all just want to fit in at the end of the day. And so it is what it is. But what I am trying to teach my kids is that if you have money for it, you can buy it. Like life is all about trade-offs. And if that is what you want to spend your money on, just don't put it on a credit card. Right. And we're cool. So
yeah, that's awesome. That's so great because year to year kids change. Right. And so like one year they're not into brands and the next like something happens and they decide they need to do something different to fit in or whatever. And as parents, like we try to be on top of that, but you just can't be everywhere. So like giving them the autonomy, like those are, letting them take a bit of the control it's like how we talk about teaching kids about finance. And between spending and minimalism, like the whole conversation, it's the same. It's about consumption and just teaching our children to be like responsible with the consumption, like that costs money, the things that consume our physical space. So yeah, I love that. I love that he loved his shoes so much.
All right.
If you all listening have a bill that you want to submit, if it's about your kids spending dollar bills on whatever it is that they want, or you're out there spending dollar bills, or you're out there saving dollar bills or finding dollar bills, frugalfriendspodcast.com/bill. Leave us your bill. We can't wait for it.
Every week on Talk Easy with Sam Fragoso, I invite an artist, writer, or politician to come to the table and speak from the heart in ways I imagine you haven't heard from them before. Some of my favorites are with Tom Hanks, Margaret Atwood, Questlove, Cate Blanchett, and Oscar Isaac. If that sounds like a varied group of people, it's because it is. I always wanted to make a show where one week we could sit with a politician like Beto or Rourke, the next an author like Min Jin Lee, or TV titans like Bill Hader and Quinta Brunson. Basically, this is a podcast driven by curiosity and an abundance of research. Conversations where people actually start to sound like people. In recent weeks, I sat with Dan Levy, Ava DuVernay, Benny Safdie, and the editor of The New Yorker, David Remnick. You can listen to Talk Easy with Sam Fragoso on the iHeartRadio app, Apple Podcasts, or wherever you get your podcasts. I hope to see you there.
I'm Angie Martinez. Check out my podcast where I talk to some of the biggest athletes, musicians, actors in the world. We go beyond the headlines and the sound bites to have real conversations about real life, death, love, and everything in between.
This life right here, just finding myself, just relaxation, this not feeling stressed, this not feeling pressed. This is what I'm most proud of. I'm proud of Mary because I've been through hell and some horrible things. That feeling that I had of inadequacy is gone.
You're going to die being you. So you got to constantly work on who you are to make sure that the stars align correctly.
Life ain't easy and it's getting harder and harder. So if you have a story to tell, if you've come through some trials, you need to share it because you're going to inspire someone. You're going to give somebody the motivation to not give up, to not quit.
Listen to Angie Martinez IRL on the iHeartRadio app, Apple Podcasts, or wherever you get your podcasts.
It is summer, and on NPR's Planet Money podcast, that means it is time to grab your notebooks and your headphones and tune into the economics crash course for your ears. Planet Money Summer School is covering the economic history of the world, from the birth of money to the Industrial Revolution to modern trade policy. We've got the lessons to keep you sounding smart at the beach, with help from real economic historians. Every Wednesday until Labor Day. Listen to Planet Money from NPR on the iHeartRadio app or wherever you get your podcasts.
Hello, everyone. I am Lacey Lamar.
And I'm Amber Ruffin, a better Lacey Lamar.
Boo.
Okay, everybody, we have exciting news to share. We're back with season 2 of the Amber and Lacey and Amber show on Will Ferrell's Big Money Players Network. You thought you had fun last season? Well, you were right. And you should tune in today for new fun segments like Sister Court and listening to Lacey's steamy DMs.
We've got new and exciting guests like Michael Beach, that's my husband, Daphne Springs, Daniel Thrasher, Peppermint, Morgan J, and more. You gotta watch us.
No, you mean you have to listen to us. I mean, you can still watch us, but you gotta listen. Like, if you're watching us, you have to tell us. Like, if you're out the window, you have to say, hey, I'm watching you outside of the window. Just you know what? Listen to the Amber and Lacey and Amber show on Will Ferrell's Big Money Players Network on the iHeartRadio app, Apple Podcasts, or wherever you get your podcasts.
Guess what, Mango?
What's that, Will?
So iHeart is giving us a whole minute to promote our podcast, Part-Time Genius.
I know. That's why I spent my whole week composing a haiku for the occasion. It's about my emotional journey in podcasting over the last 7 years, and it's called Earthquake House.
Mango, I'm going to cut you off right there. Why don't we just tell people about our show instead?
Yeah, that's a better idea. So every week on Part-Time Genius, we feed our curiosity by answering the world's most important questions. Things like, when did America start dialing 911? Is William Shatner's best acting work in Esperanto? Also, what happened to Esperanto?
Plus, we cover questions like how Chinese is your Chinese food, how do dollar stores stay in business, and of course, is there an Illuminati of cheese?
There absolutely is, and we are risking our lives by talking about it. But if you love mind-blowing facts, incredible history, and really bad jokes, make your brains happy and tune in to Part-Time Genius.
Listen to Part-Time Genius on the iHeartRadio app or wherever you get your podcasts.
And now it's time for the lightning round.
All right. We've come to the vulnerability round of our episode. And we will all answer this question, not just you, Don. So we will not leave you hanging. What's one just in case item that you have kept around for a while that you just recently realized you don't actually need? Like, in your latest declutter, maybe?
Yeah, there has been a facial steamer sitting and taking up valuable real estate in my bathroom. And like my fantasy self, like, you know, especially in Minnesota in the winter, it gets so dry here. I don't know how Florida is, but it's just humid all the time there. I don't know. But
we live in a facial steamer.
Okay, yeah, it gets super humid.
Yeah,
super dry.
We just live in one.
Okay. You have great skin. I mean, you're beautiful. But we, especially in the winter. So, you know, and especially like I'm 41 now. So I'm like, I have to be, actually, my twin sister reminds me of that. And like, you got to, she's like, you're going to look like an elephant when we're 70. And I'm not, because she does all the things,
Why'd
right?
you have to pick elephant?
Wow. I don't know. Deep wrinkles, right?
Rude.
So I'm like, okay. And I have the face mask and like do the steam and put the face mask on. And like, and I looked at it and I was like, literally have not used that in a year and a half. And so I was like, look at the data, Dawn. Like, you're not using it. You could actually use the space. And so I am letting that go, but I don't know. It's fine.
I don't think you'll look like Florida woman, because while we do live in a facial steamer, most of our skin is leathery like an elephant because of the sun. So I think you're going to be safe. I don't think you're going to go all the way to elephant.
Okay.
Yeah, I think you'll be okay. All right. Jill, your name is next on the list.
So chargers. I just realized this. I am pretty minimal. I've got empty drawers and cabinets, and I love that. They will remain empty because it's very fun for me. But I just realized I've got this collection of chargers and cords in a box that I don't know what, some of them I don't know what they're for, and that's probably part of why I can't get rid of them, because someday we'll come across the thing that we need to charge. But some of them are to our old phones, that those chargers would not work for any current electronic that I have. And I don't know why I haven't thrown them out. Like, why I have such an attachment to these are things of importance. You will need this. But they're going to be gone. Don't you worry. Right after this podcast is recorded, yes, we're getting rid of them.
That's similar, because so we got new phones at the same time, like a month and a half ago. And I immediately was able to throw out those chargers that no longer work and will not work for any electronic. Like, that was easy for me. The box, though. The boxes to electronics. I don't know why. It is instinctual for me to like just put them away somewhere, especially Apple boxes.
Apple boxes.
They're so why do they make them so good? Like,
I don't know.
You feel a twinge of guilt, like tossing them into the recycling bin.
As if you're gonna return it, and then you're gonna wish that you had the box.
But I did. I did actually toss the box and even the little papers that are in it as well.
Right. Yes. Yeah, I did too. This time around, I did too.
Days, and I was like, oh, surely I need this.
Yeah.
But then I was like, no, if it's printed, it is online somewhere.
Exactly.
It's
And
got
I
to
am
be.
not actually going to use that Apple sticker anywhere. I'm not putting that Apple
I
sticker
threw that away
anywhere.
too. Apple doesn't pay me to advertise for them. I'm not putting their sticker on anything. I actually got it. So I got a Stanley as a gift, and I was like, Stanley doesn't pay me. So I put our Frugal Friends sticker over their logo.
Nice.
Sticking it to the man.
It's a good cup, though, with a good handle. So I do use it. And I was just thinking with this. So I answered this before we started recording. And Dawn, your wireless keyboard didn't work. And I was like, oh, no, I'm such a hypocrite because I still have the box to the wireless keyboard. I do. It's like sitting over there. So
Permission to let it go. Yep.
Yeah, after we finish recording, that box is going.
That's awesome.
I don't know why I think, what if I resell this someday? Whoever I resell it to is not going to care that it comes in the box.
No.
And especially if you just turn it in at the Apple store for the new phone. They don't care, right?
Yeah. Yeah. I've bought several Apple Watches on Facebook Marketplace, and never have I once been, like, I'm not going to pay as much for this because there's no box.
No.
Like, never. So,
well, this has been enlightening, Dawn. Thank you so much for sharing all of your wisdom, tips, and tricks. Where can people get more from you?
I spend most of my time on YouTube. So if you just search The Minimal Mom on YouTube or at theminimalmom.com.
Yes. And definitely when you go to her page, sort it by popular, and you'll see the most popular one is the one that we talked about. With all the different rooms, mindset shifts to make decluttering easier. And you're speaking at the Get Organized Summit. Do you remember what you're speaking on so people can watch out for that?
Yes, I'm talking about hushing your house. And that has just it has been so good, that tactic. So if you have been struggling with decluttering, this is for you. Some of us need like those fun, like mind games. This is totally one of those. It's been so much fun.
Yes. Awesome. I can't wait to hear it. So frugalfriendspodcast.com/GoHQ. You can catch Dawn there. You can catch us and like 100 other experts on organizing all kinds of things in your home. Thank you so much, Dawn.
Yeah, thank you guys.
I love Dawn because she is so relatable. We say that about a lot of people that we have on our show, mainly because we only have people that we feel we can relate to, like on the show. But in minimalism, it can be this, just like frugality, it can be this really judgmental space where if you're not doing minimalism perfectly, you can be judged for it. Like I posted a picture of my living room once in my old house and just, did a little tour of like, this is what a minimalist, family living room looks like. And because I had some tchotchkes in a china cabinet, like I got so much backlash from like not being a real minimalist, So
yeah, it was so sad.
I know, and so I just love Dawn. She's been doing this for so long, and she is continually like decluttering because, and just like recognizing like life is not perfect. Minimalism is not perfect. And
I think,
and you have permission to not be perfect.
It was a good reminder of who we're doing these efforts for, right? You don't maintain your living room for Sally Q on Instagram. You maintain it for what's going to make sense for you. But I think that reminder is what we got from Dawn here again today is it's not for other people, even your maintenance of things, but sometimes it is, whether or not we realize it. It's for everybody else who gave us gifts for when they come over to see that what they gave us, we still have. It's for maintaining some aesthetic or giving the toys that we think that the kids need, but instead this reminder of what serves you. What is your current season? What are the things that you're using, telling you about your lifestyle? And how can you lean into those things and clear the rest of the clutter to ultimately give yourself more peace, less stress? So that was a helpful reminder for me.
Yeah.
Thank you all.
I had a funny like story that I forgot when we were talking to her, but like when she was talking about the toys, I recently decluttered some of Kai's bath toys that he stopped playing with, and I just got rid of them. I didn't hold them anywhere. and he hadn't played with them in several months because he was on to new bath toys. And like a week after I got rid of these toys, he asked for one specifically. And I was like, dang it, like it happened. But all I did was I went and I was like, hey, you hadn't played with it in a while and I donated it. I'm so sorry. Is there a different toy I can get for you? And he just was like, yeah, get me this. And I had not gotten rid of that. So it was it was like the moment I had been dreading, and it was not that hard because I was honest and I offered an alternative. So if anybody's nervous about that, that did just happen to me like the other day. So
amazing. Yes.
But yeah, like
it's so great, but you moved through it and it's fine.
With honesty, I think was the key. So and Dawn is again speaking with us at Get Organized HQ Summit. So frugalfriendspodcast.com/gohq. I'm really interested into seeing her hush your house talk. It's going to be interesting.
I'm so excited about this because it feels like a little bit of an adjacent topic than than the summits we've done or what we've been a part of. This more kind of tangible how to get organized in all aspects of life. So I'm excited about it. Thank you all for making it this far with us. We so appreciate your listen. We also appreciate your reviews like this one from JC Hall. Frugal Friends Forever says, somehow I came upon this podcast at the beginning of the year and I have been listening to it regularly every day since. So many useful tips, reminders, and helpful information on living frugally and being intentional with your money. I cannot list all the ways this show has helped me. I still have over 100 episodes to listen to. What am I going to do when I run out? Thank you, ladies, for teaching this old dog new tricks. Mwah. Mwah.
Hey!
Right back at you, JC Hall.
JC, unless you're a man, and then ma. That's how it's. Could be either. That's so fun. Thank you so much for listening, JC. And when you run out of all the episodes, read the book. Hopefully the book will be out by then. So buy what you love without going broke. Buywhatyoulovebook.com. Pre-order it. So by the time you're finished binging, that book will be on your front doorstep.
And if you're not sold on this book yet, come to our party tonight. See you then.
Bye. Frugal Friends is produced by Eric Siriani.
Okay, Jen. I have a very Florida experience to tell you about.
Yes.
And anyone else who is still here with us.
Is this what you're going to talk to me about yesterday, but you didn't get a chance about the tropical storm? Yes.
I don't know if it has to do with the tropical. I don't know if it has to do with the tropical storm exactly.
Oh, that's
but
okay.
It is a Florida experience. I went to put on my pajama pants the other night, and I did. I put them on, and then I felt something scratchy on my thigh.
Yep. Mm-hmm.
And I just like scratch it because sometimes there's something just like a loose thread or something. So I scratch it, and it moves. I whip my pants off so fast at lightning speed. I don't even remember it happening. My pants were just off, and sure enough, cockroach.
Oh no! Oh, I was hoping it was a tiny lizard.
No, that would have been amazing.
No.
I would have kept it as a pet.
That's not good. Tiny lizards.
Tiny lizard is better than cockroach. I think they're cute. I don't mind them in my home.
Your pants, but like if you take off your pants and there's a tiny lizard, you're like, be free, man. Like, but not here.
Yes.
It's when it's a cockroach.
Cockroach hits die immediately.
Die immediately. Burn it.
Regret
down,
your existence.
Burn everything.
Yeah. I did not like that
so
experience.
Sorry. I was hoping for your sake it wouldn't be a cockroach, but that is also another equally Florida. It's equally Florida.
We rarely have bugs in our home. Thank goodness. And sometimes it's going to happen, but not in my pants, man. Not there. So then we spent the next day just going around the interior and exterior of the house, caulking just whatever we could. Like where could they be coming in?
Did you put down borax around the perimeter?
When we did our renovations, we put like whatever was open, we put borax everywhere.
Well, you got to do it once a year, and you got to do it 3 times, 3 weeks between each.
Okay,
I don't know if
I'll
that's
do that
like,
again.
That's
It's just
what we do.
if I put
don't
it
know if
outside,
that's what Google would say.
My patio, like it's gonna get washed away very soon. But
That's why you
and
gotta
I
do
also
it
hear
so
like they can
quickly,
just
so many
sneak
times.
in when you open the door. So
Yeah,
Florida, you know what?
I think there's a spray version too that might not get washed away so often. But Travis is in charge of bugs. Like that's his thing. So yeah, but I'm so sorry that happened.
This is where
to
we
you.
live.
Yeah,
and you know what? I just realized it happened on our 4-year anniversary of living here. August 5th. We moved in on August 5th, 4 years ago. It was like my little awful nightmare of a gift.
Oh my gosh, but
like,
4 years
You're Florida
of us
now.
together.
4 years. Yeah,
4
can you believe that?
years.
Wow.
We've been together longer than we've been apart in this
That's
business.
true. That's crazy.
Wow.
Okay.
What did I do before you? Okay. We got somebody in our
We gotta go.
Riverside waiting room. We gotta go. Okay.
Okay.
Bye.
Every week on Talk Easy with Sam Fregoso, I invite an artist, writer, or politician to come to the table and speak from the heart in ways you probably haven't heard from them before. Some of my favorites are with Tom Hanks, Questlove, and Cate Blanchett. In recent weeks, I talked to actor Dan Levy, director Ava DuVernay, and the editor of The New Yorker, David Remnick. You can listen to Talk Easy on the iHeartRadio app, Apple Podcasts, or wherever you get your podcasts.
Meet the real woman behind the tabloid headlines in a personal podcast that delves into the life of the notorious Tori Spelling as she takes us through the ups and downs of her sometimes glamorous, sometimes chaotic life and marriage.
I just filed for divorce. Whoa. I said the words that I've said like in my head for like 16 years. Wild.
Listen to Misspelling on the iHeartRadio app, Apple Podcasts, or wherever you get your podcasts.
I'm Angie Martinez, and on my podcast, I like to talk to everyone from Hall of Fame athletes to iconic musicians about getting real on some of the complications and challenges of real life.
I had the best dad, and I had the best memories and the greatest experience. And that's all I want for my kids, as long as they can have that.
Listen to Angie Martinez IRL on the iHeartRadio app, Apple Podcasts, or wherever you get your podcasts.
It is summer, and on NPR's Planet Money podcast, that means it is time to grab your notebooks and your headphones and tune into the economics crash course for your ears. Planet Money Summer School is covering the economic history of the world, from the birth of money to the Industrial Revolution to modern trade policy. We've got the lessons to keep you sounding smart at the beach, with help from real economic historians. Every Wednesday until Labor Day. Listen to Planet Money from NPR on the iHeartRadio app or wherever you get your podcasts.
Get emotional with me, Radhi Devlukia, in my new podcast, A Really Good Cry. We're going to be talking with some of my best friends.
I didn't know we were going to go there on this.
People that I admire.
When we say listen to your body, really tune into what's going on.
Authors of books that have changed my life.
Now you're talking about sympathy, which is different than empathy, right?
Never forget, it's okay to cry as long as you make it a really good one. Listen to A Really Good Cry with Radhi Devlukia on the iHeartRadio app, Apple Podcasts, or wherever you get your podcasts.